Kính thưa đại chúng, hôm nay cũng đến gần Tết rồi. Trong cái phong tục của người châu Á sẽ đến Tết, và gần Tết nó cũng có những việc rất là vui. Hôm nay Pháp hội xin kể cho đại chúng nghe một câu chuyện cổ tích, một truyền thuyết liên quan đến cái cây nêu mà chúng ta sắp dựng.
Relating to the raising the flag ceremony we will soon do over many generations from the time when we were very little. But it's like a fairy tales, traditional tales. But we know we didn't know the details, but at least we got used to the culture. So we kept telling many generations later. We tell about the tale, just like the Santa Claus. We enjoy to share the tradition to our descendants, to our future generations, because it's transcendental. It transcends time and transcends everything. So it's really so important to transmit the traditions. So many folklore and fairy tales. It depends on everyone's perceptions and understanding. And the story in the old days, it goes like this. When in the old days, when the human race didn't have any land to raise or to farm anything to provide any food and wheat, so we have to borrow the land of in order to survive. And we had to borrow from the ghost land of the ghosts, the ghost realm of the ghosts. So they are very smart, the ghosts or the beings. They also smart when they loan us their land because they wanted to harvest the best and they want us to offer them the best as well. And these beings, they demand good portions of the harvest, And in truth, those lands, the pieces of earth, people, the human race grew the rice, like got the rice crops, and the devils and the ghosts, the realm of ghosts, and they wanted the best part of the harvest of rice, so they eventually got that. And the humans had no choice but to remain hungry. And then suddenly it was the Buddha who appeared. It wasn't about any gods or any. It wasn't about the wise beings' appearance or anything. It's just really the Buddha, and appeared and asked us why don't and suggested that we grew the yams, potatoes from that point on, and rice. And so the devil, the ghosts got the upper parts. They changed. They turned the table around, and they want to take the upper parts of the harvest of rice, and then we human had to get the one underneath. The potatoes, and so then the next year something happened. I missed. I'm sorry. And so they want. Oh yeah, the next year they wanted something else instead of rice. So the human, and then the human have to change to another crop. Oh, they want to eat the ghost god, and so we consulted a consultation with the Buddha, and the Buddha had to appear, and and then we grew corns for them, and they want to change the table again. They want to eat the bottom parts of, and they instead of in the top parts. So. And we eat the middle or something like that, the crops. So the ghosts got these beings, the devil beings, really angry somehow, and they pushed us out. They didn't lend us any more lands. So again, the human race had to beg the appearance of the Buddha one more time. So the Buddha showed the human race. So this time, please just loan one small piece of land from them. Don't ask for big farms or anything big, but with condition. Underneath the just small piece of fabric. So the shadow is as big as a piece of fabric. If wherever that shadows come through, it will push. It will be the piece of land right underneath for the humans. So when the Buddha put out the Sangati robe, the yellow robe of the Sangati, and the shadow of that robe, the Buddha just carry his robe. The piece of Sangati robe, this a monastic robe, a piece of square, a rectangle, yellow color, and so he pushed out this piece of robe of his robe, and then it shadows enough all the lands for the human race, and from that point on, we have crops and fields, and it transmitted down many generations in that culture. But in truth, it's really what happens in our consciousness, and subconsciousness. In the past, when the humankind's perceptions and thinking process were not deep enough. So we thought the devils, the evil beings are outside of us, and outside of us, not inside of us. But now with the collective understanding and collective consciousness, so more deepened. So we now starting to understand that there is all the devils and ghosty thoughts, and it's not anywhere outside of us. It's really happening inside of our consciousness. It's inside of us, in our mind, our hearts. So with the civilized perceptions and understanding intellectually at the level of the understanding of the consciousness, before we understand much, so many of the dark sides in us back then in the old days have many chances to rise up. But as long as there's one who knows and a few who know how to nourish the love and what elements to solidify our position, so then these positive energies and thought process will be able to be strong enough to push away the negative energies in us. So whenever we have this kind of energy, positive energy arising, or the unwholesome energies will certainly surely be lessened and diminished and weakened. And in the history, in the cultures, folklores, and the fables, the stories of the folk. Back then, many cultures they had this kind of belief. So many people used to believe that whenever we raise up the cross of the Christianity, it will be having enough strength and spirit to push away all the evil spirit. After the evil spirits seeing the cross, they will be scared and fear and be pushed away. And so when we have the loving kindness thoughts, the jealousy, the unwholesome energy will be diminished. But still, the evil spirits, the ghosts back then, they're still very strong. They keep coming back to us. But in every culture, we still have the similar fables, stories like such, because they transcend our cultures. Whenever we cultivate that transcendental energy without borders, because perhaps each culture has a different appearance, the manifestation. In Asia, it always is the Buddha Sangati, or the European culture, maybe the cross, the sign, or the malas, the beads. But all these are manifestation of our mind, our consciousness, and our perception, and they continue to appear, continue to be until today. The writer had declared, if we don't like children's story, we will never grow up. If we don't like those, because we don't like those stories to tell to children, that means we don't have enough capacity and opportunity to nourish ourselves. It continues to nourish us across all times and cultures. And if we don't allow the Buddha, the gods, the Jesus manifest in us, in our consciousness, of the seeds of love, of forgiving, of embracing. Of course, then the devil spirits and the spirits of the ghosts and devils and ill beings will come to us and salvage our soul, and will invade our mind and our soul and salvage what's the best in our realm of our harvest. So that fable, the stories, is personified the Buddha, the gods, into these practice methods, but in reality in our daily life is the moral stories, the teachings of Jesus and the gods, for us to allow them to manifest in us if we know how to handle and make use of these energies of the teachings of love. We can control well the dark side, and we can nourish these wholesome thoughts. So that fable, this moral stories, because it gets transmitted down and get storytelling down many generations, and to help us to practice, so that to keep balance, keep in check the ghost, dark side, the evil side in us, not to overtake us. So if we know how to nourish the wholesome and the teachings of love, and if one knows how to practice these methods, wonderful methods of practice of love, and that the person's consciousness will rise and belong to that person who practice. It's like that story, the shadows of the Buddha's robe. Everywhere it passes by, that piece of rope will create the fields for humans, and there's no fields left for the ghosts, the devils. It's because of the Buddha's practice and the energies of love, and allows strong enough to allow this manifestation of wholesome, because the evil, the negative energy of the evil side, and it can overtake, and it can bring harms to the whole country, to many peoples, and to billion of peoples, and suffering is caused. It's no usefulness out of it. So when we have the strong, solid consciousness, not being wavered by these negative energies, but how sad nowadays in this realm, humankind and human race, we do hoard some of that negativity still. So nowadays we have many people thinking of ways to trick people in the social media. We are allowing the devils, the ghosts, to take away our positive, bright side, and they are able to do so now. The devils are able to do that to us, the human race. But Buddha had given us methods and concrete practices to take care of our garden of the soul, of our mind. And the gods, the Jesus, have given us how to take care of our soul, so that not being overtaken by the devils and the evil spirits. But sometimes we're not so successful, and we got overtaken by them, and that's where the sadness and suffering appear. So these teachings from our ancestors have been telling us, transmitting down to us. They still have values until nowadays, because it has. But sometimes it's still hard to, because of those energy. It doesn't have any colors. It doesn't have any form. So what to tell what they are? So we don't know in us. So therefore, sometimes we have to borrow, personify this evil spirit So these today you see the flag or the cross on your altar to remind us as a sign, as a symbol. A symbol is very true in our consciousness to help us. It's up to us to choose which direction we would like to follow. So just like many other fables, there's so many details interesting enough. This one is the manifestation of Buddha to appear, and the other culture is the gods, the Trinity. In any particular form, in Asia, Buddha or Bodhisattvas, the sages, can appear any time for us in our consciousness, if as long as we are heading towards that direction. So the manifestation of Buddhas, of Bodhisattvas, is really from our mental formations, our consciousness being just rising up the images. But in the event, in the original, it was maybe it was just the thoughts, but over time it was given the forms and very clear detailed forms for us. Many sages, saints in your Christianity or Catholic, in Christianity, it's not just it could not be always the concrete, but it's an energy that's supporting us, and therefore the folklore is it never ended, because it still continues to have its usefulness. If our descendants, our future generation know how to continue to follow the teachings. The story seems to be interesting when we were young, because back then our consciousness was very pure, was not being tainted by impurities like with the adults. But as we grew up as adults, we don't leave any space in our consciousness for those interesting stories of the folklores and the folk cultures like that. It's hard for us to grow up. We have to leave room in our consciousness for gods, for Buddhas, to bring in the methods and concrete practices to push away the evil spirit. Then the things that we cannot harvest, it will be forever like that. But as long as there is a way we can make use of that practice, that teaching, then certainly it will give you effectiveness, efficacy of harvesting some harvest, you see. So therefore, you see clearly in our mind consciousness, we have manifestation in our everyday is truly there. It's not being limited in the stories of the folklores. Now the mind consciousness of the human race is more advanced. But at the same time, we still being affected by the levels of the devils and evil spirits. It can be more. The magnitude is immense. It's very subtle, and it can appear in everyday life. So we have countless of things to they put in invest a lot of ways to create ways to create more devils in our consciousness, and put away our brightness and take away our wholesome side. So we have to make sure to have a space in us for the gods and Buddhas, to bring in the quintessential elements in our gardens of our mind. So eventually, so that our garden of our mind is fully a land full enough that covered by the gods and the Buddhas. All these poetic forms saying only a description to help us. Now coming back to our daily life, our ordinary day-to-day life, from that piece of land only in our mind consciousness, our soul is only embedded in our physical body, but it certainly has some relationship with the outside world. Otherwise, it's only the Buddhist monks has the illness of the Buddhist monk too. You see a piece of land and we start thinking, want to build a hut there, a house there, and to honor the Buddha, to make that piece of land becoming the land for the Buddha. But we forgot that. But it really doesn't go along with the mind consciousness. As long as our mind consciousness, as long as we know how the harvest, the lower end or the top part or in the middle part, just like the corn crops, the cross, the symbol of the cross or the symbol of the bell or of the Santa Claus, if those symbols still nourishing us, if those signs, symbols still there to nourish us, then that means we are still growing and our consciousness is still developing and deepening. Otherwise, as long as we only think about the individualistically, that day, the devils, the evils, the ghosts will control us to act out for their endeavors, for each other, for the world, for their own countries. And so nowadays you can see those kind of unwholesome actions can have bigger magnitude of negative effect. In the sutras, there's description. It's almost like the two chickens being caged up and they are continuing to argue. The rice grain is better than the corn. Which one? But the saddest tragedy is that both of them will be killed. But so we also the same thing. We're fighting over the materialistic. We're fighting over the material things. But we don't know. We are unaware of. Eventually, if we don't take care of the Mother Earth, everyone will be dead. So isn't that true? So the two chickens arguing over the rice and corn, which one is better in the cage, it means nothing immaterial, because eventually they'll be dead. You see, they'll be killed off. So same thing with the human race, whichever group, whichever country or culture. If we continue to exploit the environments and the global, so eventually we will not be sustainable. We won't be able to be alive. So what is the use? What's the use of us going on that direction? So here I wanted to see the stories, the story I told you. It happens inside and outside, from the old days and the nowadays.
Và nếu chúng ta vẫn còn hứng thú
But if we are still interested in these kind of stories from that transmitted down from the many generations, that is such a wonderful thing. So perhaps our descendants, future generation will tell a different kind of stories, but similar enough. But
nó đều có giá trị.
they always have values, the moral values, because they collect and they've been deepened and been solidified by their future generations. That is the why the human understanding will be more useful and more deepened, more of understanding. So now we continue our ancestors to raise this flag for the Lunar New Year. It represents all the wonderful energies to protect us, to protect our offspring, protect our Mother Earth. It's just like the symbol of the cross. It forever belongs to human race. Doesn't matter which part of the globes. And so to that, if we get to that point, we will bypass all these borders, no boundaries, because it belongs to all of us. It is the kindness energies of embracing energy, of sharing, of unification. It can be used in this particular language in this country and other kind of language in other cultures and countries, but the main energy being embedded in that very thing is the same across. So allowing us to understand and to learn and to share. So whenever the flag is being, we rise up the flag, is the shadow of the flag will encircle the inside and outside boundlessly, just like the Buddha's Sangati robe. So as long as that is there, up there, the protection is there. It's there in our consciousness. It's just like the hands of Jesus, or the hands of God's, embedding, encircling, in all across, equally the same. Protect all people the same, in and out. So there's no reason for us not to be successful. Now, you see, we are here peaceful right now at this moment, but be aware, give rise to this awareness that elsewhere is not the same, where they're not at peace. They don't have this peaceful energy. So the point is how to cultivate and nourish these fields, these lands, so to keep the spirits of evil side in check. Sometimes we are not always successful in this kind of work, but it's okay as long as you have the seeds have been sown in your field of consciousness and your garden of your soul. So it will continue to sprout. So, in your circle of close relatives and friends and loved ones, allowing the seeds already sown to grow up. You don't have to worry. So the things that we harvest, it doesn't always have to come from our own consciousness, but it comes from other cultures, from other people surrounding us. It could be from a different language, different from ours, so that fables, the moral stories will be retold, to have this, to have the energy, have the ability to eloquently bring up, to share, to protect us. Not only for us, for our offsprings as well. That is the reason why it's that simple, but it keeps on being repeated and reminded each and every year, so we have a chance to repeat it, to celebrate it, because each and every year it will have a chance to renew in our consciousness as well. So nowadays, is protecting the Mother Earth is something is very crucially important because many people starting to understand our global warming, climate changes in the direction of not so wholesome, but at the same time we should know that there is a side of the miracles in our life. Our teacher has reminded us that our Mother Earth has gone through many devastating devastation, but they continue to renew. And many species too, they renew, they rejuvenate it, and they continue to come up and work together again. The species as well as Mother Earth. So Earth, the human race right now, the same. We got to invite the spring's energy, the energies of the freshness of the spring coming to us to nourish it, to make it larger, allowing them these wonderful spring energies to manifest more, so we can treasure and we enjoy deeply the energy. So today I would like to share shortly today, briefly, so allowing us to inviting us to have more space and time to enjoy the leaves of the spring, the flowers blooming. So we may feel worry about the drought, the past drought, and so now we're treasuring so deeply drops of rains, even though it may give us some discomfort feelings like cold and wet, but aware that our life is being surrounded by this balance, this check and balance. So somehow life is renewing. So some over there may be still suffering, but then the smile will be coming back to them, and we hope that and then forgiveness and sadness is there, but forgiveness will be there, and the smile and happiness. I'm inviting the energy to enjoy this energy to remain. As long as we enjoy this energy, as long as we know how to keep this culture, this tradition, to pass on to our future generations and our offsprings,